Welcome back to the Career Strategy Podcast. And today we're going to talk about informational interviews. So, what are informational interviews? How do you ask someone to do an informational interview? And a few things that you can do during an informational interview to make the most of it. All right, so what is an informational interview? You could think of it as an opportunity for you to ask someone who's a few steps ahead of you in your career to learn about their career path, their experience, how they got to where they are today. The informational interview is really a chance to gather information, and you're kind of doing a little research project, if you will, to get to know people's career journey and what helps them to get to where they are today. That's an informational interview, to keep it super high level. Now, as you think about who are some people that maybe you could benefit from speaking to and learning more about their career experience, I want you to be very mindful of, number one, who you ask, and then how you ask them. So let's talk about who could you ask. Before you ask someone, you really want to do a little bit of research, because if someone that you're asking has a lot of content already available, such as articles or a YouTube channel or a podcast like myself, you really want to spend time going through some of that content to find out, have they already answered some of your questions in the content that already exists? Because I have to say, nothing is more annoying than when someone emails me a question that if they just put it into Google, it 100% would have been on the first page of Google results, because I know that article I wrote has really good SEO, or I know that YouTube video would be in the top page of results. So as you're thinking about who you could ask, make sure that you are consuming some of their content, or trying to find it at least, because that's going to help you when you go in with the email where you might ask them to do one of these informational interviews. So as you think about who you could ask for an informational interview, let's think about, how do you actually go about asking them? Generally, that would happen via email. So the worst thing that you can do is start off your email with something like, "Hey Jane, I'd love to pick your brain," or "Can you have a coffee chat so I can ask you some questions about your career?" Now, I know those asks are well-intended. The risk is that someone may not say yes to those type of asks. So part of getting someone to say yes to an informational interview is how you frame it. As someone myself who receives a ton of emails from people wanting to pick my brain, the frustration I have is that, number one, I think, well, what do you actually want to learn from me? If you don't tell me any specific topics, that leaves me a little kind of concerned as to how long this is going to take. But also, if you don't tell me what you want to learn from me, it doesn't give me the opportunity to point you to existing resources that I may already have online. And chances are, if I already did an article or a video or something like that about a topic, I put a ton of time into that article, video, podcast episode, etc. And it might be more in your best interest to listen to that video, listen to the podcast, read the article, because you might get actually better information from me than if we get on a call and I answer some questions on the fly. Because what if that day I had a really bad morning and I'm kind of flustered and I'm not on my A game, right? By asking people to pick their brain or have a coffee chat, it's not just that you might kind of turn that person off, it's that you're risking potentially that the quality of the advice you may get is actually not as great as if you found an article that person put a couple of hours into. So that's thing number one. Now, when it comes to what you should do at the beginning of one of these informational interviews, first thing you want to do is break the ice. And by that, I mean at the beginning of the email, have a sentence or two that kind of let the person know that you've done your homework. And by that, I mean you can mention that you recently read an article they wrote, a LinkedIn post that they made recently really resonated you for reasons XYZ. Little things like that really help humanize your ask and indicate to the person that you did a little bit of prep work and you're not just out there cut and pasting the same request to 20 people to pick their brain. All right, so that is also the benefit of doing what we talked about a few minutes ago, this research step, right? So number one, we want to break the ice, and you are not going to send emails that say, can I pick your brain? All right, second thing you need to do after you break the ice is to be specific. As I said before, the quality of the advice that you're going to receive from people will drastically increase if you are more specific with what you want to learn. And you're increasing the chances that someone actually says yes to you. All right, so be specific with what you want to learn. Don't be too open-ended. You want to say something like, I noticed you previously worked in occupational therapy and you're now a web designer. I'm curious how you switched careers and what transferable skills you found most helpful as you went from occupational therapist to web designer. That's an example of a really, really great specific ask and indicating to the person that you did your homework, right? You noticed they were previously in occupational health, so were you. Now they're a web designer. That's your goal also. And you want to know what transferable skills that person found most valuable as they were switching careers. So be specific with what you want to learn. And remember, this could also help that person you're asking point you to existing resources, which could be far more in-depth than what they could verbally tell you in a 30-minute chat. All right. And the third thing I want to leave you with is at the end of your email where you're asking someone if you can do an informational interview with them, I want you to remember that an interview doesn't always need to happen in real time. This could easily happen by sending someone questions over email. People are busy, and I say this from personal experience. I get a lot of journalists that reach out to me wanting to interview me for certain topics or get quotes for articles, and my schedule is really packed, and I don't always have time or energy to hop on a Zoom call or a phone call. It is much more convenient for me oftentimes to have the questions sent to me, and then I will type them out. So in the same way, when you're asking someone to do an informational interview, give them the option to engage with you on their terms. So you could say, I know you're busy and whatever works for you. If you want to have a phone call, I can also send you the questions and you could answer them via email. Put the ball in their court, and that could also increase the chances that they, A, say yes, but B, it may even increase the quality of their answers because maybe they are the type of person that really wants to marinate and think about the questions a little bit. And by responding to them asynchronously through typing them out and sending them back to you, they might actually give you a lot more valuable advice than if they had to say it verbally on a call with you. All right, so those are the 3 tips for asking someone for an informational interview. You need to break the ice in the beginning, make some human connection, let them know you did your homework. You want to be really specific with what you want to learn. No pick your brain, no vague coffee chat stuff. And then at the end, you want to give them the option for how they would respond to you because people are busy and not everyone likes to hop on the phone. I hope these tips for informational interviews give you some ideas of how you can be more strategic with not only who you ask, but what you should do before you ever ask someone, and then how to craft a really effective ask so that you increase the chances that person says yes to your request. So I hope this was helpful. And if you've never asked someone for an informational interview before, maybe you will get a yes when you do this in your career. All right, that's all for today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to rate us. If you found this podcast helpful, it would mean so much if you just took 5 seconds. That's all it will take. I'm serious. Really simple. Just go to ratethispodcast.com/CSP and you'll have all the different options of how to rate it right there. You don't even have to write a comment. You can just do the star rating and that would totally be awesome. All right. Thank you, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Make sure to follow me, Sarah Doody, on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn. If anything in today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Tag me on social media or send me a DM. Catch you later.